Rage by Bob Woodward. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone, and who doesn't want to make self-growth normal, then make sure to smash that like button. Before I go anywhere with this review, I want to say that as far as where I stand, if you can't really watch this without knowing, I think the term is independent. I don't know that much about politics. That's part of the reason I like to check out books like this. A lot of other people are, and you know, if it's important to them, it's important to me. With my channel, I want to make self-growth normal. And I think that if self-growth were normal, America would be a better place for everyone. And if there are any other books that you guys think I should check out, even if you don't like this review and you'd like to maybe point me in a different direction, please let me know in the comments below. I think it's super important to keep an open mind. And I think that one of the best things we can do as Americans in 2020 is just, you know, like take a step back and listen. It's very important to, you know, voice your opinion, but I just wanted to establish all that before moving forward. I heard this book is based on a series of not one, not two, but 17 interviews that the author had with the president. A concern I had about this is that, like, is most of this just centered around how he did since February and March? Because I feel like the last like 6 or 7 months would have been a wake-up call to any president, right? Not just because of what's happened, but also how people are reacting to it. Quality leadership should put some of that anxiety to rest, right? But if that's the case, how does it compare to his previous performance? And if so, how is it different? And how's this book biased? Is it biased? It's gotta be biased. How is it biased? I checked out some of the Audible reviews and a lot of people really seem to enjoy it so far. So what's all the hype about? Let's talk about it. The author Bob Woodward says that Trump's handling of the virus so far is a reflection of the instincts, habit, and style acquired in his first years as a president and over the course of a lifetime. Something I noticed which really caught my ear is that this book is just full of conversations. To a degree that made me just wonder, like, alright, this guy must be like 40 years into the game. Turns out
it's actually almost 50.
He's the associate editor of Washington Post. He started in 1972, which probably doesn't help his case on the whole like non-biased end of things, right? Like, isn't WP like notably like anti-Trump? I don't think this book sounded that biased, at least until they started going over the interviews. Then again, upon first listen, I didn't really think Mary Trump's Too Much and Never Enough was that biased.
Yikes.
A little more on Woodward. He's known for reporting the Watergate scandal. He went to Yale and he was expelled for impregnating his teacher. I'm just kidding. Like I was saying, it's evident with his degree of precision. You will see it. Rage is just made of conversations, not just between the author and Trump. Like, there are conversations between officials and their spouses and executives. I digested these conversations and it left me wondering, how in the blue hell on earth did this man not just obtain, but organize all this chaotic information? Mind you, chaotic. No matter who the president is, the job can't be that easy. But the author's like attention to detail is just absolutely my favorite thing about this book. However, here's where this review might take a turn for the worse. I don't know, at like maybe at 30,000 feet. Let's see. He covers Russia, China, North Korea, new nuclear weapons, racial unrest, COVID, his presidential campaign, and of course,
impeachment.
But admittedly, what kind of left me scratching my head is not much of Rage, in case I didn't say it already, is all that enraging or surprising. Beyond the first maybe third or half of the book, a lot of it has been covered in news, sites, channels, blogs, all sorts of media sources this whole time. And I also get that, you know, this is probably the point. I mean, the book is literally called Rage. But it's that, for anyone else who checked out the book, can you name one thing from the book where the author's like,
okay, well, at least Trump did something right? Like one thing.
I searched, I couldn't find anything. Granted, I only listened once. Nothing this whole time? Come on, this is a 13-hour-long audiobook. Summarizing what, almost 4 years of presidency?
Nothing, really?
Any human being for 13 hours, I don't even care. Like, there's just gotta be one thing. You gotta give him one thing. Like, come on. I was also kind of let down by Woodward's conclusion. I feel like quite a few people also were. He's not the man for the job. Regardless of whether I agree. How many people have said this about him? Now, I'm not sure what else he could have said. Maybe that's really all he could have said. But given everything he takes us through in Rage, I just would have hoped for it to be a more, like, overlooked consideration. Perhaps, I mean, This guy has interviewed 20% of our nation's presidents. Isn't that insane? But to be honest, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but the interviews Woodward actually had with Trump, I'm sad to say I found rather sobering. Because if you've seen an interview with Trump, I don't really know how to explain the lack of substantial answers that even the most experienced and or prepared reporters like Woodward seem to be able to even gradually tug out of him. In some ways, I found them almost boring compared to conversations and events involving ex-officials like Rex Tillerson and James Mattis. Those guys were probably my favorite ones. I don't know why, they just seem like guys who actually cared about, they really cared about our country and its safety. Especially Mattis. Like, a note about COVID. My last review was of my second favorite book ever. It's called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And in that book, there's a lot of talk about how there is just so much stuff in life that we do not prepare for. We are not ready for it at all because we live on a planet where the primary belief is just an underestimation of so many things. It's a human tendency. Mind you, this was in 2011, it was published. The point is that it's just so much better to assume that the outcome we want will always require at least 10 times more of everything than we think, and then follow through with that assumption. AKA multiply your actions and thinking and everything times 10. Some people would say this is completely irrational. I kind of agree, but it has helped me so much with so many things in life. I cannot even begin to explain it. Unless you want to check out the review, the link is in the description. As far as underestimating what's necessary to survive and thrive, I think COVID is a super considerable example of this. I heard in some part about an estimation on March 29th of 100,000 deaths and 1 million cases without mitigation efforts. Since then, with mitigation efforts, we're now at 200,000 deaths and what is it, 2.5 million cases? 7 million cases in total. But 7 minus 2.5 million, if you want to disregard politics for a second, entirely, I do want to say on one side of the coin, it is incredible how many people have been saved. And I just want to take a second to thank everybody on the front lines. You guys are doing an incredible job. Dad, if you're watching this, hello to you. But you see my point, right? Didn't we just grossly underestimate this? A lot of us probably realize this, but there will always just be so much more that we could do. Is our country, the whole thing, looking at it that way? Is the world looking at it that way? If not, what will it take for that to start happening? Because unless we get on the same page, or at least begin to understand each other, could it ever? I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense, but I just think the problems that our country or our president faces in effectively handling COVID are so much deeper and more complex than a lot of us are probably led to believe. But the one slice of the book covering COVID was probably my favorite. I feel like he he took sort of a break from the interviews to explain a lot of stuff that happened, and I found that very helpful in understanding it. There's just something the whole situation says about us that I feel like really nothing else can. I mean, it's affected our health, society, and economy. When's the last time a crisis hit us like that on all these different angles? Regardless of its ultimate outcome, it is just such a unique point in our history. 2020 is just, it's been quite a ride, you know? I've told a couple people this. My one friend says that I have a lot of faith in our country, but I think that in the next 20 to 40 years, maybe 50 or 100, who knows? I'm convinced that most of us will agree at some point, the right decision was made by just enough of us. Call me a dreamer, call me delusional, but that's my belief. I could be completely wrong. Negative Audible reviews said things like, I don't need a book to see what Trump is capable of. Unless you're on another planet, it's old news. The narrator sounds like a used car salesman. I hope I addressed the first two of those earlier in the video. I think there's a lot of clarity in this guy's work, and there's a lot I at least wasn't aware of. But it's nice to hear what so many people have to say who worked so closely with Trump for quite some time. As far as the last one, I don't find myself bringing up narration often in audiobook reviews, but used car salesman, I'm an internet rep in auto sales. I don't sell the cars, but I do sell the appointments, and I'm also a strict Audible listener, so I've heard my fair share, and I completely disagree. This is just as good narration and audio quality as I would hope a book of this popularity would be. My overall opinion of Rage was very much hurt by the interviews. reviews. For the most part, it just seemed like they were wildly just inconclusive, back and forth nature that they had. Also, a lot of Bob's opinions and thoughts, not that those are not important, but like given the rest of the book, I feel weird saying this, but they kind of shouldn't be. I mean, they just kind of poured out during that time. Whereas the first half or so of Rage was much more organized and really less emotional. But if I had $1 for every time I heard, I have done more for the black community than any other president other than Lincoln, this book would have been free, okay? Quotes. One of the great questions of presidency is, how did it end? But then we turn to, how did it begin? To do the job well, you can't want it too much. Trump is so controversial, he's the kind of person who will inspire crazy people. Say something like, America is the greatest country on earth. Thank you and good night. If you say that and nothing else, they will all fall over dead. Controversy elevates message. I think it's your job to fix problems, even if it's not your fault. Understanding Trump meant understanding Alice in Wonderland. Lots could get better or worse, or much worse. It is unlikely lots could get better. Direction 1. By the way, what do you guys think of my Trump impression? I haven't really been working on it all that much. I feel like it could be so much better, or worse, or it could get much worse. I recommend this book for people who want an accurate account of the different decisions that Trump made, our president, as a president, since the 2016 election for president. But seriously, this guy is very reputable. You can look into his other work. He's known as a conscientious, disciplined fact checker. If you care about facts and you're the type of person with like a thirst for the truth, and especially if you're kind of curious, like, on the left side of things, like what is the truth? I wouldn't look much further than checking this book out. There are never before uncovered personal letters in it between Trump and Kim Jong-un. Direction 2. If you like this book, you might like Too Much and Never Enough by Mary Trump. It's probably just as biased. The bias, for the most part, is kind of disguised in both books. I found, if you ask me, they do really kind of have their moments, which I guess is fine, but there's a degree to which, like, personally, I can only hear so much of it before I find myself, like, spending like 70% of the book review, like, bashing it, and its dismissal of, like, let's examine more facts, and let's examine them more, shall we? I haven't checked out Fear by Bob Woodward. I think it's the prequel to Rage, but Rage, it kind of made me want to. Very curious for that review, kind of see how they're different from each other. Rage by Bob Woodward. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If you guys buy anything through those links, then I get commission, which helps me build this channel and keep making these videos. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe, but if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.